DJ. Started in the music industry here in the early 80s as a DJ, and had my first release in 1985 with my man Miguel Garcia here, and just kind of have been moving on since then, owning a record labels and still DJing.
My name is Miguel Garcia, and also known as Michelangelo, and I actually started spinning in 1977. Been a producer really since 1984, where I produced Mad on Rock Nation, the first producing that I did. Just loved being a DJ. My biggest dream was to make it to the biggest nightclub, like the Studio 54 back then, and I did that by spinning at the Limelight, which we're going to visit next, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that.
Man, we are at 1332 West Irving Park, the famous Rizal Center. This is the spot where we threw all of our earliest parties. I was doing a party here once, and there was another crew of guys around called Sunset, and the party that I was having here was the first time I ever met those guys. They just, I guess, came to check us out, and that's where I met Miguel for the first time.
I threw with Sunset our first dance here, and that must have been 1979, 1980, right roughly around there.
Me and Diego, we were Odyssey Disco.
Odyssey Disco.
Yeah.
And then that's how I met him. I didn't even have the idea of yet making a record yet, because that all came to me in Miami. Once I lived in Miami, and I went to a pressing plant over there. Then we came back, and Sunset was already happening.
Right.
But it got too small because the crowds that we used to get.
Yeah, we outgrew the place with
So
our crowds.
we started throwing dances at Golden Tierra, at the Aragon.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is actually where it all started for me.
Yeah, he approached me after my seeing me rap and was like, man, you know, we need to make a record. And that's kind of actually what led us to Soto Studios was, you know, somewhere along the line we found out that there was all this electronic stuff that you could do to make records. So we had no clue. And that's kind of where we first got our introduction into electronic music. The first drum machines were just coming out. The first polyphonic keyboards. Most keyboards back then were all monophonic, so you couldn't even play chords on them. I had my Mattel Sensonics drums.
Yeah, that's how we programmed Rock Nation.
And that was kind of our first introduction into the whole electronic music thing. We found our first Sequential Circuits Pro 1 in the reader, used for like $300. We bought it. Again, got home, didn't even know how to use it, couldn't even make it make any sounds because it was all analog, and you actually had to tweak the thing and dial up the sounds you wanted.
The only thing I wish we could go inside the place now, it looks so small, but back then for us
It was huge.
It was huge.
Just seeing all the heads, you know, 300-400 people back then at one party was big. You know, we were the kings of the North Side. They loved us. There it is. So we're at 1148 West Chicago Avenue, site of Audio Talent Record Pool. About 1983-84 is when it started here at this location, and this is where just about every major DJ in Chicago you would find on a Tuesday picking up records for the week. And that eventually morphed into DJ International Records, Quantum Distributors, Benji Espinosa and Rocky Jones, obviously, and the Audio Talent Record Pool, I believe, carried on through the 90s. And yeah, this is where it all happened. We are at the original office of Sunset Records. This is actually a garage that we all built in the back of Alex and Robert's parents' house. We did all of our releases here, did all of our bookwork, all of our accounting. Like I said, distribution center. Every day it was just on the phones, calling record shops. Guys would show up here with demos. You know, we'd be in here working, and all of a sudden someone knock on the door and, here, I got a demo for you. So yeah, and it just, every day we'd basically come here, go to work, sell records. Alex would go out and do deliveries. And as soon as nighttime hit, it was time to go hit the club and time to go DJ. So we'd literally spend our whole day here and then leave out for the night from here.
I remember coming over here to one of their house parties, and Robert had a nice DJ set up in his basement, and he actually had Star Trek kind of doors.
Star Trek Robert used to call him. If you read the story, you'll see too that Robert actually was the one who built all the lighting that we did. That was all done here. It was like his workshop. And I mean, the guy was just an electrical whiz. I mean, for him back in the early 80s, Sunset was considered innovators in the scene in Chicago because we were, building our own lighting, which, so we were able to do stuff that no one had seen before. We're also the first production company to kind of transition into making records. That was a big deal. When we put out our first record, people were like, "Whoa, you're Sunset Mobile Disco. Now you're Sunset Records. What's this?" And so it's piqued interest, and it kind of set us apart from everybody else. And also, you have to realize that we were putting out records before house music even existed. We were putting out, Electric Baile and, You Can Do It and the Raz EP. This is all pre-house. So house wasn't even existing at this point, and we were already putting out records. So, in many ways, I think we were like one of the first pioneers, in the Chicago independent label scene to actually start a company and be releasing product, It was an amazing time, and like I say, it was very grassroots, and everything that we did, we built from the ground up, including this garage. So we are in front of the Aragon Ballroom, world famous ballroom in Chicago. It was opened in the 1930s. We started doing dances here in the 80s. I think our first dance here was 1987. The first party we did here was a battle of the lady DJs. First time we ever had lady DJs battling in the city of Chicago. But after that, we did multiple events here. Everything from dances to salsa concerts. We would get 3,000, 4,000 people at our parties. Styles of music we were playing were everything from disco to kind of the New York sound of the 80s, going into the house music sound of Chicago.
We did a concert for Celia Cruz back here.
Yeah, a lot of salsa, Celia Cruz, Fredo Vargas concerts.
Moonlight Traveling Disco, they used to throw a lot of dances here back then. Frank Torres.
Ours were Sunset Mobile Disco parties, but then there were other production companies that would hire us to bring in our sound system and lighting because we had the best stuff in town. And we probably did around 10, 15 events here between 1987 and 1989. So we were here pretty frequently. It was quite amazing. The parties here were unbelievable. The room itself is gorgeous inside. Just a wonderful spot to have parties. All of these events that we're talking about were events where we DJ'd. Long live the Aragon. We're still pumping it.
We're at the famous Limelight. Actually, the way I got my DJ gig here was through this friend of ours, Bobby Sager, and he was the resident DJ here along with Joe Smith. And I was here for about 3 years. Some of the greatest nights, man. Like I said earlier, my biggest goal was to make it to the biggest club once I started DJing.
The place was incredible back then.
Yeah.
Me, being a total house DJ, started getting into a little bit of the new wave and the Depeche Mode and stuff like that. And
actually, I taught a few DJs how to spin alternative.
Yeah, he taught me. I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, The Cure? Ooh.
Yeah, because even Bobby, he would just like throw another record in after another, but I blended him. And Jeff Pasek from Club Neo.
Yeah. They all checked us out because we were actually blending the actual new wave songs together like we did with house music. Most DJs that played that stuff didn't do that, so guys like that played at Neo and 950 and all the other clubs that were kind of new wave at the time, they used to come check us out because we were actually blending the stuff and doing remixes with 2 copies and stuff like that, and no one was doing that with that type of music back then.
And I only just didn't play alternative, I also played house music.
Yeah. And actually it's cool because the Limelight was known for alternative, but because of us playing there, they started wanting to know. They, being in Chicago, they knew that this house thing was starting and it was becoming a movement, and so they wanted to dip their toes into it, and they utilized us to do that. I think one time they had us bring the Hot Mix 5 here to play, right. And at that time that was a huge deal because this was one of the largest clubs ever in Chicago at the time. This was the old Chicago Historical Society originally.
The night that I came to spend here was unbelievable for me.
And it was just a madhouse, here. It was such a fun time in this club. Yeah, really a place to be. I definitely felt when I worked here like I was at the pinnacle of the Chicago club scene at the time. It was definitely one of the hot spots in Chicago for quite a long time, one of the largest clubs in the city.
We are at Chicago Tracks.
The legendary Chicago Tracks Recording Studio, Halsted Street, Chicago. This was the second location of the studio. They actually moved once again later on at the end. But this is the location where all the house music stuff was recorded here. You had engineer Steve Spaperi working here. Ron Gresham worked out of here. Those guys have credits on probably hundreds of house music records. Marshall Jefferson. I mean, everybody worked here. Labels would come over from Europe, set up shop here at the studio, and literally just listen to demos and write you a check right there if they liked it and give you a contract. So, but yeah, many legendary tracks were done here. Love Can't Turn Around. I did Bang the Box here. We did a lot of our recordings here. Persia by Mechanical Music. We did Try Again by Kaisa here. I believe we did Electric Baile here and at Chicago Recording Company. I think almost all of the Sunset tracks until the later stuff, like the White Knight stuff, was all done at Off-World Studios. But prior to that, everything else on Sunset was done here. For AKA, we also did Close Your Eyes here. We did Bang the Box here, obviously. And I think those were the only two AKA recordings. And then I went on to keep working here for years, actually, as an engineer. Worked with Ministry, Revolting Cocks, Daryl Pandy, just a bevy of artists that came through. At any given day, you'd have, Adonis in Studio A, I'd be in Studio B, Marshall Jefferson would be in Studio C. So it was kind of cool because we were all kind of on the scene doing our music all kind of at the same time, and would actually kind of go into the other sessions and visit and, oh, what are you working on? Oh, what's that? Oh, that sounds cool. So, this is obviously back when there was still a big camaraderie and a community, in house music here in Chicago. Lots of good recordings came out of this building.